Good morning and welcome back to the Finance Transformation Digital Summit. My name is Sally Fletcher, Head of Online Events for IQPC, and I'm delighted to be hosting this session on behalf of SSON. So we've got a real treat for you this morning. We've got not one, not two, but three speakers as part of our next session. Before I get ahead and introduce them, I just wanted to run through a few short notices for today's event. So, as I said yesterday, what you see before you, your console, is fully customizable. You can maximize your view of the slides or the media player unless you want to see anything closer. And there's some really good information in there, so you may want to. There's also a Q&A tab to the left-hand side of your screen where you can pose questions for our speakers. All of our speakers are here live, so I recommend that you take advantage of that and ask them some great questions. We also have a question mark at the bottom where you can see those FAQs. So if you have any technical problems, the answer is likely there. But you can also message me and my colleague Ashley in the Q&A and we will get right back to you. Next up, there's a resources tab with some great additional resources from our speaker sponsors and the SSON network. Our first speakers, Infosys, have added some great resources there. Advice on transactions, vendor payments, processing, as usual in unusual times, and a white paper on enhancing the effectiveness of rolling forecasts. So just click on that and download those. They're really good companions to this session. So what have we got planned for you today? First up, we've got a really good session on GBS, involving Finance GBS in the post-COVID world. Following that at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's 2 p.m. British Summer Time, we've got a session on accelerating finance transformation with trends and benchmarks with SSON. And bringing up today, we've got a session from Unilever, the finance director there, on RPA plus AI, steps to cognitive automation success. So I'm going to introduce two out of our three first speakers. Our first speaker is Vinay Rao, the VP and Strategic Business Practice Head for F&A for Infosys BPM. He's got over 27 years experience in finance industry with over 17 years spent extensively in the practice of subjects such as accounts, audit, taxation and corporate law. Prasin Nair, the Global Engagement Leader for F&A and GBS Services for Infosys BPM. Prasant is an Associate Vice President at Infosys, where he has been performing different roles for the last 14 years. He's got a Master's in Business Admin, having 18 plus years in experience in finance, accounting, solution design and delivery, with wide experience in manufacturing, CPG, telecom and distribution industries. And currently at Infosys, he leads the F&A and GBS transformation service globally. So some really, really great expertise on this panel today. I'm going to hand over to our first speakers to lead us in our next session on GBS. Over to you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you for the great introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks joining us all across the world today. We have, as Sally mentioned, a couple of great panelists today along with me. First is Rizwan. Rizwan Malik is the global CFO of Markham Image, a $1 billion sort of leader in the imaging industry. It's part of the Dover Group. He has been the CFO of Markham Image for the last 4 years, and he lives in Geneva. Prior to this role in Markham Image, he has been leading finance operations and other leadership roles across Procter & Gamble, Gillette, and Kellogg in the last 15 to 20 years. Welcome, Rizwan. My first sort of question to you is, you live in Geneva. Again, I mean, I know you are an avid skiing enthusiast. While this is not the skiing season, but this is actually the tourist season in Switzerland, right? So maybe, I mean, starting from there, how are you seeing the local environment this year? How has the businesses started reopening? How is the social environment in Geneva?
Firstly, thanks, Vinay. Thanks for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here and talk to everybody today. Yeah, clearly, these are very difficult times. Switzerland generally has fared rather better than many countries in terms of the pace and acceleration, and then the ability to control the impact of the virus. And where we are today is that we are relatively open for business and open to mix outside. And that is mainly due to the fact that the virus is in relative control. That said, I think the outlook for Switzerland as a country is mixed, given, as you quite rightly said, tourism is a significant part of our economic well-being, and this will be severely hit this year. And from a personal perspective, many people will look at least to stay within Switzerland. So a little bit of a mixed bag. It's good that we are open for business, but I think at the same time there's a lot of uncertainty, like there's in many parts of the world, in terms of what is coming in the coming months ahead.
Yeah, hoping for a sort of better few months during the rest of the year. Rizwan, I introduced Markham Image, or I sort of introduced you, but it'll be good for our sort of audience from across the globe to understand a little bit more on Markham Image and Dover as a conglomerate. If you can sort of highlight some of the things that you do as a corporation, that would be great.
Sure. Shall we move the slide on for the viewers? Okay, so at a high level, Dover is a diversified industrial company with global reach and global scale. Overall, we're approximately $7 billion, and as you can see, we have around 24,000 employees worldwide across around 18 operating companies. Diversified, absolutely, and what that means is that we play in many end markets, all the way from retail fueling to retail to industrials. So a lot of diversification in what we do. Over the last, I would say, few years, we have tried to transition from Dover being a pure holding company to really trying to add more value within the portfolio of operating companies. What that means is common processes, a common approach in areas such as IT, finance, HR, and that has allowed us to drive some efficiency and productivity across the various operating companies. I think also Dover has moved from being more reliant on cyclical businesses and moving away from that to more businesses linked to consumption. And if you look at Markham Image is very much part of that strategy. We are the #2 global player in marking and coding. And those of you out there might not know what marking and coding is straight off the bat, because it is relatively niche. But essentially, if you go into any store and pick up a food or beverage product, on that product there will be a code. That code could be a best before date, it could be a date stamp, it could be a serial number. That is put on that product from our machines on the production lines. And we sell the printers and then the inks and the after-sales service behind that product. And our business is really based on the consumption of those units. And the majority of our business is again in food and beverage. So we are a very significant part, closing in on 1/7 of that overall Dover revenue. So we're in a very important part and a very diversified part geographically, as our business is really global in footprint.
That's a very important sort of point. As a CFO of a very diversified sort of enterprise, which is spread across the globe and touching so many industries and the consumer itself, right? I'm guessing that you have multiple challenges coming and hitting you this year, right? One, obviously, the pandemic, but then there is the question of trade barriers, US election, closer by Brexit. So how are you navigating all this? What do you see the state of business be as we go forward?
I think that's a very good point. And I think, as you say, there's not just one potential uncertainty. If you look over the last 12 to 24 months, there's been various uncertainties out there in business, to mention things like the trade environment globally, and then clearly the pandemic. I think what it really points to is more disruption. overall more disruption, whether it's external events that are happening outside of your control, whether it's technology changing. And as a CFO, for me, the challenges of finance as a function is vast. You know, how do you plan? How do you forecast? Which is really the essence of the core of many of your tasks. How do you plan the business? That is quite a challenge. And I think for that, you know, what you need to be as a business is very agile and able to react quickly. That's one area that we have to deal with. The second area is when it comes to technology and potentially technology.
Oh, I think we just lost him for a second. Let's give Rizwan a chance to dial back in. And what I'll do is I'll do our polls now for a short while. So we've got a couple of polls that we wanted to just to share with the audience. If we can get you to just quickly answer these guys, that would be great. So first up, how has the pandemic changed the way that you look at working from home or flexi work for GBS services? Will you offer higher remote or work from home options to employees? Will go to a model of limited working from home? Will hire more gig workers, so that's a flex time or part-time from anywhere talent that's available, or will not encourage work from home? So let's see what our audience thinks. How has the pandemic changed the way you look at work from home or flexi work for GBS services? Will you offer higher remote work from home options to employees? Will you go to a model of limited work from home? Will hire more gig workers, that's flex time or part-time from anywhere talent that's available? Or will you not encourage work from home? So please answer and press submit. That will be great. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to do that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look and go to the next answer. My goodness, that's so interesting. Okay, cool. So it's very interesting to you guys. We're going to offer higher remote working from home options. That's certainly good news to me because I work from home. We'll go to a model limited working from home. We'll hire more gig workers. That's slightly less, but there's definitely people looking to do that. Is Rizwan back with us again? Or should... Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please, Rizwan.
No. So what I was saying is, I mean, this clearly shows that the work from home, that transformation has really happened, right? So that's a big shift that we are seeing.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's fascinating. Is Rizwan back with us, or shall I go to the second poll? Okay, no worries. Actually, maybe you can give him a call. I'll go to the second poll. Very good. Great. So the second poll that we wanted to find out is, which of the following change has COVID-19 accelerated in your enterprise? Because we know it's been having a big change for everyone. First is mainstream usage of digital video communication technology. The second is adoption of more cloud services. Third is focus on more RPA, AI bots to make the GBS resilient. D, focus on resilient supply chains, or E, all of the above. So that's, which of the following changes has COVID-19 accelerated in your enterprise? That's mainstream usage of digital video communications technology, adoption of more cloud services, focus on more RPA or AI bots to make the GBS resilient, focus on resilient supply chains, or all of the above. And I know it's tempting to put all of the above because we're often in that situation, but try and choose what's most important to you. And I'll give you 10 seconds to answer that. Well, we've got some questions coming in for you, Vinay, already. Awesome. Okay. Cool. I just go to the answer. Very interesting. Okay. Yes, mainstream usage of digital video communications technology, adoption of more cloud services, all of the above. Any comments on that, Prasant, or should I hand back to Rizwan?
Yeah, again, I mean, something which I mean, we know the popularity of Zoom as a technology itself, right? I mean, this is obvious by this response. So we can.
I know. Don't we all wish we'd invested in Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Rizwan, sorry, I think we dropped you in between. So we just quickly jumped onto polls to see how the audience was viewing work from home as a concept. And it seems that most of them would want to go back to work from home, irrespective of whether there is a pandemic or not.
Interesting. Sorry about that, but I'm back now.
Yeah. So we'll quickly go back to the state of business. You were talking about the tumultuous challenges across the globe. So, yeah.
So where I left you was that we have to manage it as businesses a lot more uncertainty, and that's for sure a big challenge. So at the same time, in this environment, clearly there's the very unique challenges of the pandemic, and essentially for us, like most businesses, the first thing we have to think about is the safety and security of our employees, and how can we really secure that? And it was challenging, but I think we did the best job we could. Secondly, we have to see how we could operate as a work from home environment. And again, that brought into questions around, do we have the right technology? Are our people able to work from home? And that itself presented challenges around infrastructure and around security. Luckily, we were relatively well set up with infrastructure to work from home. So that transition was a relatively smooth transition to working from home. But then again, there were additional challenges that the business had for us. In a work from home environment, we realized that our control environment has changed. Suddenly, areas like security, which in the past might have been more physical, are now all digital. So to really deal with that, we had to think about our control structures again. And what we end up having to do is actually enhance some of the controls. So again, people working from home, working in unfamiliar, sometimes in unfamiliar setups, working together as teams, but with high level of controls needed because of that. So those were some of the challenges we faced. But what we found generally was that people were very able to step up to the plate and work together as teams, despite the fact that they were working very remotely.
That's good. Good to hear. I sort of echo your sentiments with regard to the health of the employees being paramount importance, and both the sort of physical health and emotional health, right? I mean, in such a situation, managing that again has been important. Again, I mean, we are on 30th, end of Q2, right? And I remember 1 month back when the last quarter end was happening, all the countries in Europe and US and even Asia for that matter were actually about to close down. So how did the last quarter end go for you from a finance operations perspective, managing payments and some of those elements?
I think overall we were very pleased with how we managed to close the quarter. And I think part of this was for sure how we worked well with our partners. And Infosys clearly were one of our key partners here. And we found that all the core processes, whether it was order to cash, procure to pay, or record to report, despite being remote, we managed to fulfill all the tasks. And I would probably say, if you asked across the business, we would say we did it more efficiently. And that is such an important aspect, because as we look into the longer term, and looking at the results of the little poll you did whilst I was offline, people seem to be content to be able to have more flexibility, and it's hard for them to give up on that. As a CFO, I think there's a case to be made that there's efficiency there as well to be had. People are working more productively, which is a big help to the business, but also a big help to them, because then they can actually find more quality time potentially to do other things. So there is this consensus, I think, that we were able to close the books and do it in a good quality, despite a higher level of controls, and with people feeling as if they had a better overall balance. So that, I think, triangulates into quite a strong win for us.
Good to hear that. And I think you highlighted the point about controls, right? Yeah, that's, I think, as a CFO, typically, I mean, and with all the other CFOs that we talk to, one of the most paramount concerns are about the controls or the lack of those, right? If you work in a remote distributed environment. So even before the pandemic came in, I know you have been a proponent of mass controls and technology-enabled controls. So what's your point of view on technology enabling you to manage controls even before the pandemic, and how are you seeing it accelerating as we go forward?
I think this is an interesting area because you tend to start something for one reason, and then you realize as you go down that path, it is effective for so many other reasons. So, when we started looking at, and I know you have a session later on RPA, when we looked at how we can use bots to improve our processes, even basic things like get a journal entered into, into the ledger. At the time, it was a efficiency drive, a productivity drive. So, it is a more productive and efficient way if you can robotize and digitize that journal entry. But subsequently, what you find is that when you take the lockdown, for instance, digital information is more prevalent. Your information is digitized, and if you can control it in that way, you then have a stronger control environment and one that is actionable in a more remote working environment. So having being able to trigger those journal entries through a robot remotely versus the old way of manual entry means that we were able to work remotely. Then if you take that forward and you look at other processes and you look at digitizing them, our ability to actually control using algorithms and using bots is really enhanced by having processes that are effectively digitized. So in a way, our early push to digitization is bearing fruit because not just of efficiency, but because in a remote working environment, that is probably the only way you can secure strong controls is by doing it, leveraging automation and leveraging RPA and algorithms. So yeah, I think we have to continue to do that, and it will come along side by side with giving people more agility and flexibility on how and where they work.
That was that perspective was really good, Rizwan. I know. I mean, you have been one of the early adopters, or you have been always adopters of technology and open to sort of RPA and technologies like AI and machine learning. And as a company, if I remember, Markham Image was one of the companies which came out with 3D printers also, right? So how do you see the technology transformation sort of accelerating again? I mean, as a CFO, when you see it, will companies go into a standard ERP sort of model again? I know, I mean, from a Dover and Markham Image perspective, you might have strategies which is aligned to the corporate strategy, but as a GBS leader and finance leader, how do you see that sort of dependence on large ERPs and sort of company-specific ERPs evolving as you go further?
I think one thing we definitely see is more integration between front office, middle office, and back office. That integration often comes in the form of cloud-based appliances or applications, rather. So if you think about areas like customer services, they're being automated through automated customer service applications. E-commerce becomes a bigger part of your business. And then that information and that processing for those applications are cloud-based, and you have to be able to have let's call it an ERP system, which can work in an automated way, in a digitized way with those applications. So sharing a common cloud is an important theme now, and there's a few different options out there as people move to SAP Ariba. Microsoft has its own cloud platform. The digital landscape and how you structure is going to be critical. And I think because digitization is happening across every part of the business, I'll give you another example. Just recently, we were looking at sales commission systems, which in the past had been Excel-based, more manual, and now there are a number of digital sales commission systems out there that give the power all the way down to the salesperson on their iPhone. That kind of application is one small application. But imagine that kind of process across many different areas of the business is happening. So much information is captured digitally. It all sits on some element of cloud. The ability to bring that together means that you have much more opportunity to automate your financial transactions end to end. And for that, I think the ERP systems have to be ready. And so many corporations are on versions of ERP systems that are not able to be that integrated yet into cloud-based, multiple, platformed applications. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think looking forward, the environment has to be much more cloud-based, integrated, and the opportunity to integrate with multiple digital applications, because there really is an explosion in that area of disruption or innovation out there.
Thank you. I mean, I think that was the answer sort of that I was looking for. Maybe a last question from my side for you before we jump on to Vinay and then maybe take the audience poll. Again, as a CFO, cash is the king, right, at this point, and it's more paramount at this point of time. Again, with the sort of fiscal sort of policy which was been evolved by many of the governments and many of the sort of central banks. I'm guessing, the overall cash flow in the economy has been sort of maintained. It's not like the great financial crisis. But having said that, as a CFO, is there something on the that sort of gives you sleepless nights, specifically from a cash perspective?
Of course, cash is the number one priority of many companies out there, and I think what it really does, it focuses you. It focuses you on the decisions you're making. So when it comes to a CFO, one of your key roles is asset allocation, and as you think about that, you have to be really clear on where you make your investments, what are the returns on those investments. So that's one thing it does. It sharpens your kind of investment approach. At the same time, I think just the mechanics of cash, whether it's collections or payables, our ability to execute those processes very, very efficiently is key. And again, digital and more AI approach to collections is the future, and those service providers and technological providers who can leverage AI in how you focus on cash collections, those are the services which now will be which are very valuable. So this is a little taster for you of how cash impacts us and what we're looking for to try and optimize that.
Thank you, Rizwan. I think I sort of moved my slide slightly later. I think you talked about all the 4 elements of the new normal in terms of remote working, the digitalization, the automated controls, and the overall pace of transformation. This was very insightful. Thank you for this. I'll maybe jump on to Vinay. Vinay, again, Rizwan talked about how he and the Markham Image organization navigated through the quarter end, right, in March. Maybe we'll start from there. You manage closing for almost 110 large global corporates, more than $1 billion. So how was your sort of Q1 end or the March quarter end for your clients?
Yeah, thanks, Prashant. I think, I echo the sentiments that Rizwan has expressed. If you look at it, it's about building a resilient system, because the pandemic is a reality, we all know, and we'll need to live with it for some time to come. It's hazardous to even guess how long. So it is important to build agile systems and be able to quickly adapt to this situation and build resilient system. It's like we have discussed, it is about building some partnership with your own employees. How do you ensure that, give them an assurance that they have the safety and security and the support of the organization, and we care for their health. At the same time, we have been able to, look at ensuring that they're enabled to work from home. They're able to, log in, do the, giving them all the network connectivity and all the facilities and logistics that is required to support them. Also put in systems which help in, kind of measuring their productivity, also the utilization of our assets. The second is, really how do you engage with your customers and assuring the clients that even in this situation, we're able to deliver, we're able to, look at how we will, be able to close their books or, make payments, etc. For example, for a large leading professional organization, we have 1,500 folks doing end-to-end finance and accounting across 3 centers, right? For the month of March, if you look at it, we processed around $964 million of invoices. That went from March to April to 1.2 billion. Similarly, about 70,000 claims were settled. We have been able to close the books not just for the month, but the quarter. So I think there are several customers who rely on us on this, and we've been able to support that. Like Rizwan said, it's very important to protect the data confidentiality, the integrity of the data. And our DPO, our data privacy officers, work very closely with us to ensure that we put those controls and security protocols to ensure that there is no data leakage or privacy that is disrupted, right? And the last is really about how are you going to measure all of this? And we have put in automated systems to be able to measure the performance, to be able to look at the quality of services that we have been rendering over a period of time. Also, I wanted to say the interesting thing is I also see that there is a surge in e-commerce, right? Because of all that is happening, there's a surge in e-commerce. Clients are looking at us to innovative solutions. How am I going to help them, say, improving their cash flow, the working capital? Is there some innovative supply chain models that we can bring to space? So it is all not just about building resilience on our own services, but also to handle our own clients and customers and be able to build a resilience for them as well. That would be the thing. And I don't think we have had any issues so far. Most of the CFOs whom we interact with for several customers have been very happy with the kind of book closures that we have done.
Thanks, Vinay. In fact, I remember one of the CFOs mentioning was that they were already ready for the new normal even before all this happened, right? Because they were working with robots for closing. They were having employees working from home as part of the larger GBS that they had with Infosys. Things like that, yeah. So I think, this has accelerated the entire transformation with some clients like that. Having said that, I had a question for you. For many of our audiences are GBS leaders who are thinking about their finance operations strategy and rethinking on how do they need to, or where do they need to pivot to, right? In this day and age, with the rapid changes that you and Rizwan were mentioning. So what would be your view for the sort of conversion to the GBS.NXT organization, right? Or the Finance NXT organization, which can help them navigate the new normal?
Sure. So Prashant, I think that different companies are in their own journeys. It's important to assess the maturity of their journey, where they are today in their GBS journey. It would be fair if you look across the spectrum to say that on an average, most of them have achieved some amount of centralization, some amount of standardization, some amount of harmonization, and brought in automation. But if they look within, the question that they need to answer is, have they been able to convert this centralized accounting operations, which they run, as a center of excellence, or it's just a center, right? Yeah, that's the huge difference that we need to address. Second is, most of them have remained cost centers. Can they become profit centers? Right. So the important for GBS.NXT is to probably, partner with consultants and service providers like us to look at how can you convert your center into a center of excellence. how are you organized? Most of the GBS are organized by regions. The first thing that you have to do is move them to a process-based organization. It is not about EMEA or Americas or APAC. It's about P2P, O2C, R2R. It's only then you can bring in the elements of value stream mapping. You can build in the elements of lean culture, the best of breed of technology, whether it's an RPA, whether it's AI, ML, conversational CFO, your ability to bring insights not just to reduce costs but to enable decision making. So I think that it's extremely important to assess the maturity and then bring in the best of breed of people, process, and technology. Let me just give you an example of what we have done with Philips, which we take care of their healthcare as well as their lighting, which is called a Signify. We have converted them over the years from a regional to a process-based organization. We've done 27 different transformation projects for them, e-invoicing, setting up collection center of excellence, and we've been able to generate about $52 million of run rate savings on an annual basis. We have done the largest RPA program that one has seen, 550 bots, about 321 FTs worth of effort removed, 3x return on that. We've been able to ensure that the cost of finance is reduced from what it used to be to the best in class, which is around 1% of their revenues. The most important thing that the GBS will also have to look at next is that their businesses are expanding. They're going in for mergers and acquisitions. How do you build scalability? The resilience also in a COVID thing is based on your scalability, the ability to move quickly around and things. So on one hand is to scale and descale, at the same time also build the resilience around situations like we have done. We've taken over several shared service center and transformed them. And we have been able to, in this COVID thing, ensure there's no disruption to them. So the movement to a world-class finance organization should be, in my opinion, the ultimate goal of any GBS.NXT.
Thanks, Vinay. And maybe a last question from me. When you look forward for, say, next sort of 2 to 5 years, right? Again, in the new normal, what would you think are the sort of trends that you are seeing in the finance GBS space?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Prashant. And I think that there are 5 or 6 things which is going to happen, and which, if you're ready for, it's great. If not, you're going to be behind. The first change I see is that you are working towards a period close, right? It could be a month close, a quarter close, an annual close. But going forward, it's going to change real time. Period close will be there for statutory purposes. But with the kind of automation we have, on a click of a button, you should be able to clearly tell what your balance sheet position, your profit and loss account, your cash flow position, your working capital situation at a point of time, right? So that is where we'll get to a real-time basis with the help of AI and ML. Secondly, I think there's going to be a huge talent change. If you look at accountants, their core focus has been on domain. But if we are looking at the change in their role to enable decision making, they will have to bring in an emotional intelligence within them. They will have to bring in communication skills. And these two are very, very critical along with domain if you really want to be a full-fledged accountant in the GBS.NXT. The third is the proliferation of how the data is spread across various things. And with the proliferation of universal business language, API, etc., which allows systems to talk, it ensures that you have a great service ahead of you of data integration. And the moment you're able to bring data integration, you will be able to derive insights to be able to bring those decision-making points. The fourth thing I believe is invasive compliance. You look at compliance, with the kind of surge in the e-commerce, the potential for online frauds is going to increase. How do you build systems and controls within that is something we think through. But I believe that regulatory authorities will also look at asking us forced compliance. There's going to be an invasive compliance that we'll have to get used, which means there's going to be increased regulation. The fifth thing is really about, a lot of self-reliant system, self-billing, vendor portals, help desks, these are going to become a reality because you can't move out of your house in this COVID situation. So how do you continue to transact? You can't, say that I will do it only when I am able to move out. So this kind of a self-release thing, which is online, is going to be increasing. Another aspect is that there's a mushrooming of small and medium enterprises, which are going to challenge the ERP. If you look at that, they are developing very, very niche products, which are useful in the finance and accounting world. Yes, like the .com, they're going to consolidate in the long run, but I think they're going to challenge the ERP and going to sit around it like a wrapper. That is going to be an increasing trend. And the last point, which I would believe is there is going to be a change in the way transactions are processed. If AP and AR and the transactional work is getting increasingly automated, it also means that you will have to look at more niche services. Your adaptability of the GBS.NXT to handle higher end niche transactions like finance and planning analysis, taxation, treasury. So it's also going to change, the value add that you can bring to your, central organization. So I think these are the 5 or 6 things that you need to look to as we go forward.
Thanks, Vinay. So thanks, Vinay and Rizwan. It was a sort of very interesting half an hour for all of us. We learned a whole lot from it. But before we move on to audience questions, I wanted to summarize. So what I heard from you is that this paradigm shift has accelerated digital transformation in the finance world to a great extent, right? Maybe, it would have sort of moved forward the entire transformation by 2 to 3 years. That was number one. Number two, I think, Rizwan, we heard from you about cash being the king and with multiple challenges across the business environment. For the CFO, it's the importance of insights. It's the importance of cash that he or she needs to manage along with the finance operations that comes across that you are navigating. Thanks a lot for these insights. Sally, maybe, if you have any audience questions, we can use this time to
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. That's some really, really interesting, detailed information. Yes, we have lots of questions from the audience, so we'll have time for just a couple. I am going to start with this one for Rizwan. So Salim asks a question, Rizwan. He asks, have you faced any issues on data privacy, given that the Shared Service Center or GBS staff are working from home at the moment owing to the pandemic? Is that anything that you have faced in your organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. So data privacy, data security is always a very important issue, but especially in this time, it was very important for us. So first thing I'd like to say is as we work with our strategic partners, so in this case with Infosys, we were reliant on having very strong controls from our partners, and that was the case, and they were able to act very quickly to assure us that as their people were working remotely, they still maintain the highest level of data security and data privacy. So that was the first thing. And secondly, from our own perspective, we already had established the level of protocols and security to allow our people to work from home and actually process and manage data. And that enabled us to work pretty much from the onset with the right level of control environment. But the point is that wasn't achieved overnight. That was something that we had to invest in over the last couple of years. And so we were in a good state. But going forward, we see this to be an increasing challenge as more and more, potential activities can happen remotely and not office-based. So good question. But yes, It does take time and effort to get to the stage that we were at.
Yeah, it seems that digital transformation is as much about resilience for future changes as it is about, progress and innovation. So it's so great that you were kind of in a position to take advantage and be able to kind of carry on delivering to your customers and suppliers. A question for Vinay, a last question. Question for Vinay is, what hurdles do you visualize which stop the journey from regional or business-based operations to process-based operations?
Sorry, what was the question, Sally? I didn't get that.
Sorry, it's a question about, do you see any blocks when it comes to the journey from regional or business-based operations to having kind of an end-to-end process-based operations?
Yeah, I think, see, there are 2 or 3 things that we need to ensure as building blocks for that. Firstly, there is a change in mindset that is required because many of them, operate as regional in their own way. They have their own template, their own way of working. We will have to, build a change management kind of approach, working closely with them in workshops to be telling them how they would really benefit if they move from a regional to a process-based organization, which has clearly defined templates, clearly defined processes, which are looking similar. So when a group CFO consolidates data across his various units, he's able to compare them. He's comparing apples to apples, and he doesn't have to straddle. So that's very important. Second is you've got to have a set of global process owners for each of these who will drive and design some of this. Be able to think through how will the process look in a process-based organization. That is very critical. So change management, having the people, experts, design. It's also important that you have global process executors on the floor who will execute on this design, so that all the 3 combining together will give you the benefits. There are building blocks, there are hurdles, but if you're willing to change your mindset, you can achieve it.
Yeah, 100%. Brilliant. Well, I could talk to you guys all day, but sadly, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining us live and answering those questions and giving us your insights. As I said at the beginning, there are some resources for emphasis in your resource center, which will help with more understanding around this topic. So please don't forget to download those. They're available to you at the moment. For those of you who submitted questions that we didn't have time for, I will send your questions on to the team and they will get back to you by email. So we're going to take a very short break right now, and we're going to come back in 10 minutes for our second session, which is from Naomi Secor at SSON. She's going to be looking at accelerating finance transformation with trends and benchmarks. And this is really the opportunity to benchmark your progress and maturity against the best-in-class shared service centers around the world. So thank you to Vinay, Rizwan, and Prasant for a fantastic presentation, and I'll see everyone else shortly.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.